We are just going to go straight back to Parliament, where Rebecca is with ACT Party leader David Seymour.
Yes, I am. And this is your first budget on the government benches. Do the tax cuts go far enough for you, David?
Well, tax cuts can't go further than spending cuts. If you look at how much tax has been reduced, it's almost exactly as much as we've managed to save by doing things better and smarter and stopping some of the stuff that we didn't really believe in and wasn't getting value for money. So they've gone, I think, as far as they can. We're looking at about 3.68 billion of tax cuts, but 3.71 billion of savings.
You believe in low tax and flat tax, and when I'm looking at these tax cuts, I'm seeing sort of 25 down to $4 a week. It doesn't seem like, does it go far enough for you philosophically?
Well, I think, putting philosophy aside for a second, I mean, yes, ACT obviously would always like to go further, and I think it's fair to say that the budget doesn't go as far as ACT would, but it's also gone further than it would without ACT. As far as those amounts of money, I think one of the themes of this budget is stuff is just tough for everybody. I was talking to an accountant the other day. He said he used to have a client until a few weeks ago who had to sell his bed to pay the wages of his 3 remaining staff. He used to have 40, then he had 3, now he's sold his bed, now he's moved to Australia. Now that just gives you a sense of how hard things are out there for people in a whole lot of different industries, and so there's a lot of small figures here and a lot of tough decisions, but unfortunately that's just the way New Zealand's economy is right now. At least now we've got a government that is acting in concert with the economy, not just borrowing money and blowing it up.
Yeah, absolutely. These tax changes that we have seen today, though, this is it for this term, isn't it? There will be no more tax cuts or changes to the tax system this term.
Well, again, it depends how much you can save. You can't cut taxes more than you save. Otherwise, you're just borrowing, putting it onto future generations, creating inflation, all bad stuff. But one thing I'm confident, this budget's a good foundation for growth. And I believe, I look at the savings that we've found. I mean, I was put in charge of finding savings in MB. We saved about $500 million a year so far. I was put in charge of free school lunches. We saved $104 million a year, and you'll see what other ACT ministers have been up to. We've shown how you can actually save, and I believe if the previous government increased spending by about 80% to get basically the same or worse results, imagine starting from there how much we can save by doing more with less.
And that work will continue, won't it? Because it can't have gone far enough for you either. The way that you campaigned was getting rid of whole ministries, for example, but this will be a rolling program of work where you will continue to drive savings across the public service for the full 3 years.
Yeah, look, I'd like to think that's the value that ACT adds. Will the other parties go as far as ACT on this stuff? No, if they did, they'd be the ACT party, but they're not. But are we making sure that, from the point of view of people who share our view of the world, that the government needs to take a smaller slice so everyone else can have more cake? I think that we're playing a pretty honourable role in how this budget's stacking up.
I want to talk to you about a promise that the government hasn't been able to keep, which I know that you will be associated with in your Pharmac role, which is the life-saving cancer drugs that were promised by National during the campaign. They haven't been delivered today. That will be extremely disappointing to those people out there. Can you tell us where that is in the process?
Yeah, look, first of all, can I just acknowledge, because I'm responsible for Pharmac, and quite a number of those people have written to me, and I've had to write back and say I'm extremely sorry that we cannot do this right now. But I also just want to be a bit upfront about why that is. The Pharmac budget this year that we're sitting in is about $1.5 billion. Under Labor's budget, it was going to be $1.1 billion starting this July. We got advice from Pharmac saying the questions will be, do we just tell some people that there's no more medicines, or do we actually start taking medicines off the combined pharmaceutical list and no longer fund them at all? That is the challenge we faced. We had to put $1.774 billion over 4 years into Pharmac to fill that $400-and-something million a year hole. So the reason that we're in a tight spot with pharmaceuticals is Labor, they can gnash, and I saw Barbara Evans. Fact is, we were having a drink with these Labor folks. We're having a drink with them, and they walked out without paying a $455 million tab. That's what we've had to do with pharmaceuticals.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon.